Now I know we're besieged by mysterious and terrifying monsters that have already taken 3 of our young people. But talk will not help us now. We need action. We must organize, pull together, rally our courage, strengthen our hearts, and pursue these frightful creatures to the end. We'll make this world safe for our families, for society, for democracy, for the civilizations of the world! Destroy the monsters and rescue the children!
Hey everyone ever, and welcome to 20th Century Pop, the show where we try to understand the present while living in the past. My name is Tim Blevins.
And I am Bob Canning. And Tim, I wonder, are we still in October?
Well, judging from last week's mentions of the season, of the time of the season, yes, we're still, we're a good number of days into October. Not quite at the halfway point, but I think we're more into it than we were, let's say, last episode when all we could talk about was October.
Yeah, I didn't ask you last time, and I meant to. Is this time of year, October and fall, is this a favorite time of year for you?
It should be. It mostly is. I like the breaking of fall when it's cold. I like the when it gets dark earlier and it gets light later or whatever, however you phrase it. Like I like all of those trappings of it. I like the colors and I like the mood. I kind of like the Halloween mood, and I've lost touch of this. And it's been more than 10 years. I've really lost touch with the whole idea of the Halloween season, which is what October always meant to me. Like in school, as soon as October hit, haystacks would go up, straw and pumpkin-faced characters would go on the walls, all the decorations would come out.
Reds and oranges and yellows.
Yeah, very fall, like the leaves and everything. But I'm thinking more, too, about what everyone's talking about. Like, I just remember in school, like, you'd be reading The Headless Horseman, or I guess it's called The Legend of Sleepy Hollow, the Ichabod Crane story, or we would watch, like, a film strip that would tell a Edgar Allan Poe story, or we would tell ghost stories, and those kind of things, and that build-up was kind of nice because, again, not the biggest fan of trick-or-treating on Halloween, but loving the build-up to it, and part of the build-up, and I know we mentioned this last year, we may have even mentioned it last episode, but part of the build-up for me in October was the appearance of television specials, both animated, live action, fictional, maybe about ghosts, just Halloween-themed specials. We talk a lot about holiday specials. Christmas has them. I think there's some in Thanksgiving. Were you a fan of watching Halloween specials? Do you remember some specific ones from your childhood?
I don't remember too many. I definitely watched the Peanuts Halloween, Charlie Brown.
Yeah, which we discussed last year. I'll put a link in the show notes to that episode.
And there is, I believe, a Garfield one that I watched.
Do you remember that? People seem to have a very fond memory of that. I'm not sure I've ever seen the Garfield Halloween special.
I remember it being scarier than I wanted it to be. Mm-hmm. But I couldn't tell you anything that actually happened in it at this moment. Like, I don't have a memory of it like that. I have a visual in my head of them going somewhere else and there being a skeleton and something else, but that's probably as far as I can go and not start to make stuff up.
Is your general sense of Halloween specials, the ones aimed at kids or ones you saw as a kid, they're scary, right? There was a general sense, if not of scare and terror, at least of unease. You remember feeling uneasy around Halloween time? Yeah,
they definitely wanted to put a little bit of a fright in you. I still to this day get a little freaked out with Snoopy's the noise he makes when he's rising up.
The slide whistle?
Yeah, is that what it is?
I have no idea, but it is creepy.
It still creeps me out. The sound, the visual, just the idea of the Great Pumpkin and the shadow rising and Linus freaking out and the noise, that combination, and the design, the colors and the darkness of it. That sticks with you.
Yeah, and I don't think you're asking, do I enjoy October? Do I enjoy this part of the year? I think, all of that. October is all of that. It's kind of like the colors of things and the sounds of things. Like, I like that unease. I like that creepiness. I like that shift kind of thing. And I think that there were a lot of specials I remember seeing as a kid, some of which are, classics that play every year, but some of which I think would play once or twice, and they kind of leave a mark. Like I probably couldn't recall the entire special offhand, but I have a memory of seeing it. Images in it will kind of strike me, hit me, or remind me of that season. Do you have things like that? Are there specials that you have I know you said the Garfield one a little bit, but things that maybe without the internet you wouldn't be able to think of the title, but you just know there's an image or a feeling that you think of and you think, oh, right, Halloween.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely things like that. I don't know if I have a lot of Halloween ones, but I definitely have a couple from Christmas. I've got just other shows that sort of stand out. It's like, I know this existed. I can't remember the name of it. I can talk to people about it and they'll be like, oh, yeah. I've seen that. Yeah, what is that called? I don't remember. I don't have any that stand out for Halloween, including this one when you first told me about it.
What we're going to talk about today is a half-hour Halloween special. It's an animated special called Witch's Night Out. You weren't familiar with Witch's Night Out? It's not something you had heard of?
No, the title didn't ring a bell. The still image that was in the link that you sent me didn't do anything for me.
The highly legal and accessible online through comparable means link for you
Correct.
And two of your friends.
Yep. Didn't do a thing for me, but when I started watching it and I saw the character design of it, I had seen these characters before. That's what struck me. It's like, oh my, like I know I've seen these characters before. I have no recollection of seeing them in a Halloween special, but the images, the way they're drawn, the fact that they're people but they're not people, the fact that they're wearing clothes but they're not wearing clothes, the fact that they're a single color, like it all just was like, oh my God, I know all of these characters. I've seen them all before.
And it's very, like, again, I didn't see it in 1978, but to look at this special, this is very late 70s looking. It's a special that's set in a fictional town called Anytown, which isn't mentioned in the special. I just found this looking up online. And apparently there's a series of these films. This is actually a sequel to something called The Gift of Winter, which was some holiday-themed special that came a few years prior to this.
And this is Canadian produced, right? Did you say that yet?
Yeah, this is a Canadian-produced show. It's got some Canadian voice actors in it. Gilda Radner's in it. Catherine O'Hara's in it. I think the original Gift of Winter had Dan Aykroyd in it. And Canada, actually, just to quickly...
Yes, explain to us what Canada is.
So when America kind of was founded... and I have no joke. I was going to try to do. I was just going to say, unhilariously similar to that, was Canada actually produces a fair amount of animation. And I don't think I always knew where stuff was coming from growing up. But if you've ever seen anything by the company Nelvana, they did like the Star Wars Holiday Special animated sequence. They did Rock and Rule, one of my favorite animated movies. They did the Berenstain Bears cartoon. I think they did the first Care Bears movies. They were a very small but very just skilled, high budget animation company based out of Canada. And apparently Canada produces a lot of beautiful animation, and I think it's one of those things that maybe some of these things that are jarring to remember or jarring to look at are because they're just coming from, I know it's Canada, so it's kind of like, it's a little bit like Nevada, but higher up with some snow, but maybe it's the mentality, maybe it's the work ethic, or maybe it's just the fact that Canadian shows don't have the repeatability through legal issues or whatever in America that other shows like the Peanuts and stuff would. But Canada produced a lot of animation that to really research growing up, I saw once or twice and frickin' stuck with me. And this special is no different. And it's not a particularly intricate special. There's not much of a plot to this special.
What is the plot to this special, Tim?
Well, basically, I mean, it opens up, we're in this town, and there's these, you were talking about the simplicity of the character designs. They're all sort of like, each one is its own color. Like here's a yellow character, here's a purple character, and they're very curvy kind of lines, very quick and easy to draw, kind of abstract. And there's two child characters at the beginning named Small and Tender. I think they're brother and sister. That's their name. And they're very excited for Halloween. They're very excited to get dressed up. I think one wants to be a werewolf, one wants to be a ghost. And And I'm going to jump over one part just to do their story, because actually I don't think the special is actually about them. I don't think it's a very child-centric special in the end, but I'll tell their story first.
Sure.
They're just two kids, and when they first came on, I was very annoyed by them because they have these high-pitched voices. They're all like cute and adorable, cutesy, whatever. But what you quickly find out is that's how the town also perceives them. They're cute. They're adorable. They're going door to door saying, trick or treat, smell my feet, blah, 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 trying to get candy with their scary costumes, and everybody knows
they want
it's
to terrify people.
That's exactly what they want to do, and nobody's scared by them because they're these cutesy kids. And I found the moment that plot point came up, that's kind of hilarious, because one sounds kind of like Morty from Rick and Morty, the other one sounds kind of like Morty from Rick and Morty. They're just very high-pitched children. But I thought that is funny because they're set up as these cute little kids who can do no wrong, and it's true. And so as the special goes on, they're in their rooms. They kind of are mad at Halloween or disappointed by Halloween. And they make a wish that they could be scary, or they wish they could be part of Halloween. I don't remember the exact wording of the wish, but somehow this wish gets out there and it reaches the ears of this witch who lives in the town.
Who I call the Wish Witch.
Is that her name?
No, but that's what I'm calling her. I think she's just the witch. But for me, this is the first time I've ever seen a witch shown as a grantor of Halloween wishes.
She's using magic. I mean, she's a lonely witch.
But it seems to be her calling. Yeah, yes, she's a lonely witch. That's established early on. That nobody needs her anymore, and she's lonely, and she's broken.
But she's also kind of
sad.
sassy. She sounds a little bit like a 40s, like, hey, doll. Oh, I'm not going to do characters this episode. Sorry, everyone who's expecting spot-on impressions of Marlena Dietrich and the like. I'm not going to do that, but she is kind of like, she's talking to her cat, and she's making all these jokes while also woe is meing it a little bit.
Exactly. She's definitely designed after those 40s actresses. But she says at the beginning, and maybe I have to go back and rewatch it, that she's not needed anymore. And I didn't know what that meant exactly until these kids made their wish to be real monsters. And then that wish, like you were saying, reached her. And she says something like, oh, I'm being called. And so it's like, that's her duty. Nobody wanted to be, like, apparently in the past, people wanted to be monsters all the time, and she was very busy, and she was granting monster wishes here and there. And,
like a job.
Yeah. And of late, nobody has made a monster wish. And so, yeah, I think of her as a wish witch. And these kids are the first kids in forever to wish that they were monsters. And so she rushes to them to grant the wish.
To grant the wish, exactly. And before we get to that, I guess it's good to point out these two kids are also the only really two kids in the town. Yeah. The town's not populated by that many people, but you meet some other characters with names like Malicious and Rotten and Nicely and Bazooey. It's a town of adults, really. It's a town of very specific adults. They all know each other. And at the beginning of the story, when the Tender and Nicely are excited for Halloween, the adults also seem excited for Halloween.
Yeah.
Or the idea of Halloween.
Well, I think there's another character named Goodley who seemed to be put off by the past Halloweens. They haven't been as entertaining as they should be. And so he has the idea to throw a Halloween party for the town. And they decide to do it in the abandoned house that everyone thinks is haunted. He thinks that would be a great place to do it. It's actually not abandoned. It's where the Wish Witch lives.
Which is hard to say, but that's, I guess, what we're going to be calling her, Wish Witch. Witch.
So he enlists Nicely and even Malicious and Rotten to help plan and do this party. In the residence of the Wish Witch. So yeah, Halloween. Everyone's excited.
And so that's just, and to mention that is just because that's odd. That's the main plot is actually these adults want to throw a Halloween social. Because they're not getting dressed up. They're not in costumes. No. They're not getting candy. They're showing up and they're drinking and talking and dancing. as a social event, these adults at this castle, and these are kind of the main characters of the story of the special.
Yeah, I think Malicious and Rotten take over much of it because they get their hands on the witch's magical wand.
Vibrator?
Vibrator.
It's a vibrator.
It definitely the special definitely has a 70s sex party kind of feel to it.
The special has a 70s sex feel to it. This is an adult-driven, sexed up, jokes to go over the kid's head special.
My favorite joke is at that house, and it's at the party when Nicely...
I think it's a joke that wouldn't fly now, but I think I know what this is. I'd like to hear you say it.
I think you could get away with it. It's pretty subtle. Nicely sees one of the kids in monster form and faints. And somebody else says...
Nicely is this very puffy-looking female character, kind of like those warm, fuzzy things they used to give out with googly eyes, but she's all like pink and puffy, I think.
Yeah, and chipper and fun. And
hot and sultry and a little sexy.
You think so?
I think when we get to the end, there's a moment where I'm like, wow, that's Ralph Bakshi jerking off on this special.
Okay, yeah. I know what you're talking about there. But she faints when she sees it, and one of the nondescript other adults at this party drinking their drinks says, nicely passed out. And another guy turns and with a half laugh says, already?
I know. And do you see the characters actually say it, or are these off-camera voices?
No, you see that character say already. He's got this smirk on his face.
I feel like there's all this busybody talking background noise of like four adults in the recording studio just throwing out lines like that. Like, I'm going to guess that line wasn't written in the in the script, or I think it was just like let's get some comedians in here or some performers to do these lines, because it's strange. You're right, it feels like a sex party too. They're all kind of there, all grooving around, which is not a word I know how to use, so maybe I just used it wrong. But even just the look of it, there's a lot of cleavage. I mean, side boob, and I guess exposed boob, cartoon boobs, so no nipples.
Yeah, I mean, because of the way these characters are drawn, they're just like these line drawings of a solid color. Some of the men look like they're wearing jackets, but the women are basically just a shape. And Malicious is just a female shape with giant breasts.
Giant breasts, like harpy Greek god myth breasts.
Yeah. With no collar or anything. Like, it just goes from breast to shoulder to neck to head. So she basically looks nude but purple.
And I'm willing to guess, we were talking about like images that stuck with me, followed me through childhood. Because I used to watch this special, and we'll get to the moment that I actually remember from the special in a minute. But this might have been my introduction to sort of the female form. Because there's a lot of drawings like that in that of boobs, of the, it looks almost like if you're going to draw a flock of birds on the horizon upside down. It's like just kind of two little divots. But hers are huge. And I'm not saying this to be like, filthy, dirty, tell it like it is. I'm just saying, like, it was odd to see. It's a fact, and it's odd to see, to think about it as a child who watches cartoons, and it's mostly animal cartoons or maybe Scooby-Doo. This is a special that's focusing on adults and giving you feminine form, feminine shapes, and in a very different sort of. This would be like if the Keith Haring drawings had boobs, kind of almost. It felt just like that, and I do think it's sexual. I don't think the special is necessarily bad for kids and trying to introduce them. Not bad, but not trying to introduce them to sex too soon. But this is why I feel like like it's a Ralph Bakshi cartoon where it's like it's just oozing with 70s swinger key party sex. And it's the color choices, it's the character designs. It's just this idea that it's just a crowd of adults who just want to party. And it's odd because it's not about these kids. It's not about trick-or-treating. It's just about this group of adults. And I think it seems like this would have been an odd thing to sit with your kids to watch the first time it's on. Maybe.
Yeah.
Like, is this something you think you'll show your daughters?
I've actually already shown them some of it because they asked what we were talking about tonight. So I was explaining the special to them. I was recounting some key moments that maybe we won't get to tonight. One of my favorite moments in the special was when she crashed through the window.
That's the scene I remember.
I was trying to explain to them that it's just this weird cartoon. It was kind of drawn weird. I was saying weird to them because they're not used to this sort of stylistic choice that was made. Their cartoons are your PBS cartoons that are just full of detail and whatnot. So I was saying it's just really a weird, strange cartoon. And the strangest thing for me, I said, was when the witch flew to a house to grant a wish and
guided by her weird vibrator wand.
Yes, holding on to her weird flying vibrator wand, and basically crashed through the window of the house in slow motion.
Yeah.
And then took forever to stand up and carry on with the scene. It was the strangest thing I had seen. It's
pretty funny, to be honest. The standing up part, I think, is funny.
The standing up, yeah, and the crackling. I couldn't tell if it was the crackling of her back because she's so old or the glass she was stepping on.
But that crash through the window, that's what they always use to advertise this special. And that's almost like I must have seen ads for the special more than the special itself. Like, but
Sure.
probably before we had a VCR, definitely before stuff was on demand so you could summon it up when you wanted to or find it on Hulu, you would have to case the TV guide to figure out when your specials were coming on. And
would
it would
you
only
circle
be the
them?
I think so. I think I would go through the Sunday, like every Sunday you get the week TV guide, and I think I would go through that.
I would circle everything. Make sure my mother knew that I wanted to see something.
Did you check back with it, or was it kind of like similar to like going to like a Christmas catalog saying, I like 2 of everything on every page?
I would probably
and never
check
getting
in,
it?
midweek if I had forgotten what was coming up. And then I would see my blue pen and immediately my eye would be drawn to it. I know exactly what was on that night that I wanted to see.
Did you ever accidentally circle like the 700 Club or Celebration of the Eucharist and be like, oh, now I got to watch this at 9 a.m.?
I was pretty good about circling only what I wanted. Mm-hmm. Only Manimal.
And then writing in Manimal on the days where there was no Manimal. It's odd to me because and we've talked about this before, I'm sure, with like some of the Christmas specials. It was a time when like you would be anticipating, and part of the anticipation of October, these specials coming up, but you'd only have one shot at it.
Right.
You'd have to know what you wanted to see or see a commercial for it. And this Witch's Night Out, maybe I only saw it in its entirety once, but that image of her crashing through the window, again, it would always be what they would show in slow motion. And I think it must have gone into syndication at some point because I have a strange memory of seeing it like in a little graphic at the corner of a screen with like 11 WPIXX or whatever on the bottom or something. Yeah. But that was like the selling point. Because it's a weird moment of animation. It's also, there's the witch character that's in the title. But that image has always fucking stuck with me. Because again, it's weird animation. She's very limber, like she's very long, thin arms. She's always moving. All of this animation is
she's like an
always moving.
Old dancer. Like that's what I pictured.
I thought you were gonna say like an old Dick Van Dyke,
no,
which now is just
actually
Dick Van Dyke.
He's an old dancer. But yeah, like her limberness, it always made me think that she's that old woman who used to be a ballerina.
Yeah, and it's amazing. Like everyone's so fluid with how they're moving. It is kind of creepy. I don't think it's rotoscoped. I think it's just they're just animating. I get used to sort of the limited animation of something like a Scooby-Doo, which I love. The original Scooby-Doo I love, and it's like very moody, it's creepy backgrounds, and it's always dim looking. But the animation movement is kind of limited. You get some funny running from Scooby and Shaggy, but it's mostly pointing and walking and whatever. Everyone's always just wiggling their arms around and sliding back and forth. And I think as a kid, that was new for me to see. I mean, Disney probably did it in a lot of their movies, but again, I wasn't seeing that many Disney movies. And it's creepy. It's kind of creepy in this.
Oh, definitely.
And I think all these little things made this special feel like something unlike not that I shouldn't be watching. This wasn't like you can't do that on television level, whatever. But there was something about this that felt like, I probably didn't watch this with my parents. I probably just watched it on my own, maybe with my brother, but probably on my own, probably with a hand on the dial to change it in case somebody came in the room.
So you felt it wasn't for you, that you were seeing something a little risque, perhaps.
Well, that's glorify. I think I'm glorifying it and saying that. I just think it was just so different that I didn't know how to process it. Because to keep going with the plot, the witch arrives. Our two characters, they're being babysat. This is the other thing I remember from the special. They're being babysat by a burnt out stoner named Bazooey.
Yeah, Bazooey.
Bazooey. That's the other part I remember. With a B.
Yep.
Because I've always, until I rewatched it, I always thought it was Kazooie. Because I remember him walking in and they're so excited to see him. Kazooie, Bazooey. He kind of lumbers in. And for some reason, my memory of this is that he's a wacky wall walker. Do you remember what wacky wall walkers were?
Is that the thing that sticks to the wall and then slowly unsticks partially?
Yeah,
and
it looks
then
like
falls down, but then sticks, the part that fell sticks, and then it keeps going and going and going?
That is exactly what it is, unless you're talking about scabs. Yes, that's what it is. And they had a special, too. There was a Wacky Wall Walkers one-time special, so maybe I'm converging the things. But that's to give an image to people who haven't seen this before, and I would really advise you tracking it down and spending a little money on it if you have to. You can rent it for $4 on Google Play or buy it for $5, like I did. But just the way he kind of moves in, the way his arms are moving around, it's so... I don't know. It's very trippy. It's very acidy, kind of whatever.
And then he freaks out too. Like he's very laid back with the kids, but then when the witch grants their wish and they become monsters, the way he reads his line is like, "Oh man, what are you gonna do? How can you?" It's like, "You can't do this. I'm the babysitter." It was just like
this job is his last shot.
Yeah,
like this guy needs the $4, and he was hired as a babysitter, and he can't fuck this up. But yeah, the witch comes crashing in, and she turns Small, the little boy, into a werewolf. A cool looking werewolf, by the way. I like the way he's moving around, and she turns Tender, the sister, into a creepy ghost.
Very
like
creepy.
Legitimately scary, simple sheet looking with an open mouth ghost, and they're floating around the room, and Bazooey is asking her to turn them back, which she does. The witch turns them back to show that she can do it, and then she turns them into their characters again, and then Bazooey, Bazooey. And this is another line. Can I find it if I wrote it down? Because I rewound this 4 times, this part. She asks him if he's ready, what would he like to be if he could be anything? And I'm pretty sure he goes, Wowee something, oh my peyote. But he says, I can't think of it, but he puts the word peyote into this mishmash of Wowee, zowie, humdinger, whatever, peyote. I can't think of it. And he just drops peyote. The word peyote is what I heard. And I'm like, yep. That's what this can do. This is people getting away with a special. But he says, I'd like to be a Frankenstein's monster. She turns him into a Frankenstein's monster, and she decides to take them all back to her house where the party that the adults are having is going on.
Yeah, she wants to give the party a good scare.
Is that what she wants?
That's the sense I got. Like, I think when
she's not malicious. She's not a malicious witch.
No,
so
malicious.
This is a fun scare.
Malicious is malicious. But the witch is...
is that character's name.
Yeah.
But she's not very malicious.
But the witch, the witch was just lonely and bored. And so when they came into her house to start planning the party, she overheard that they were going to do that tonight. And she got very excited. And she was going to give them I can't remember exactly what she says, but a magical witch show. Like she was going to do something crazy with her wand, with her vibrator. And just
I keep saying that because it's a stick that shakes, and they've added the sound that some voice is going of and it just buzzes around, and she's aiming at people and talking about follow your pleasures, here are your passions.
Yeah.
And it's great, but I'm like, I think that's what that is. Because witches, I didn't think of this until my partner Allison pointed this out. She was saying witches ride brooms in specials like this.
Yeah,
in
no
kids'
broom.
cartoons. They ride a broom. They don't hold on to a vibrating wand and fly through the sky elated like she did.
My girls pointed that out immediately when they saw her crash through. It's like, where's your broom? It's like, nope. She's just flying by sheer
Where's
power
her vibrating egg?
But no, she really wanted those guys there so she could give them a fright. And so she thought, now I've got some monsters. Let's go back. And I think you were talking about how it's about the story is about these adults. I think beyond the fact that it's called Witch's Night Out, I think the real story is the witch. Because here she is about to have her moment in the sun again at this party, doing her witch show. The monsters...
With the kids as the monsters.
With the kids as the monsters. And the monsters,
Bazooey.
they scare the partygoers so much that when she makes her grand entrance, she at least looks like a person, so they're not put off, I guess. And instead of watching whatever it is she's about to do, they're just running over her to get out of the house.
Because they're scared of these monsters.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is why it's her story. She's the lonely witch who finally has a moment, to put on her show and to have people freak out. But she doesn't even get to do that because her plan backfired and they're taking off. And eventually, it comes back around to where she is... I don't want to ruin the ending. I don't know if you want to go through the rest of the
go
plot.
ahead. Say it.
Well, basically, make the end of it kind of truncated here. The townsfolk decide that they have to find these monsters and stop them because they...
Destroy all monsters.
Yes.
You actually hear in the background as the angry mob is gathering, one person's voice go, "Destroy the monsters and rescue the children."
Right, because that's the thing. They were trying to find the kids, and the kids couldn't be found, obviously, because they're the monsters. And so the townsfolk are chasing after the monsters. The monsters get away. The witch gets away. When she got trampled, she lost her wand, and Malicious and
Her vibrator
and Rotten end up with it. They try and use it to get food first, and then gold, and they just keep failing. But
so Malicious and Rotten, they're not villains. I guess they're the closest we have to an antagonist. They're just two. Rotten, actually, I thought was kind of funny. He has like a jacket on and he talks all kind of tough. Malicious is voiced by Catherine O'Hara in this screeching, obnoxious voice. And they get the wand and they're trying to make money. Is that what you said?
Well, at first they're trying to get food because it's like, well, what should we do with this? And Rotten said he was hungry, so they try to make food. And then
she tries to make a gross sandwich, like what she says sounds gross. And then she aims the wands, tries to make the sandwich. He's left holding something, and he sounds genuinely excited based off what she said. He goes, "An old sock, that's close."
Yeah, and then she says, "Let me make you like a turkey and pickle meringue sandwich or something like that." Just foods that wouldn't go together. And he ends up holding a bag, and he looks in it, and he goes, "Hey, you're getting better. It's a bag of garbage."
And he sounds so sincere.
Yeah.
He sounds sincerely excited. But they're trying to use this wand. They're trying to make the magic happen. Magic apparently exists in this town. Nobody is surprised that magic exists. But to go back a moment, after the townsfolk, the adults who wanted to destroy the monsters, fled the witch's house, the kids start to cry. They actually feel bad. They actually feel bad because they scared people.
Yes.
They actually said, when we were trying to scare them, they found us scary. And one of them makes the observation, we won't be able to relate to everyone.
That's right.
Because we're scary. And that came out of the blue to me, because here is a Halloween special. The holiday about dressing up, the holiday that some idiot always likes to make the statement of, Halloween's the one time a year where I can dress like a normal person, or making some dumb joke about, oh, am I so wacky? I'm a sexy scarecrow or whatever. I get it. And it's fun, but that's something Halloween should be fun for that. You like we were saying at the beginning of the show, you get a little unnerved, you get a little scared.
Yeah.
You dress up. These kids are regretting that they did that because they scared these adults and are now equating it to being outsiders. That's a strange message at this point in the special.
It is. At this point, I started to think that maybe the theme here for this, what I thought was a kid special, was
Christian rightism. That's not a word. But.
Well, I thought it was be careful what you wish for. Because at the beginning they wished that they could be scary. And when they got to be scary, they didn't like it. And she, the wish witch, was
so hard to say,
wishing that she was needed and had a reason to be around people and could be out. And then when she had that opportunity, it was all going wrong. So I thought that's kind of the direction it was going. It didn't really go that way. In fact, it sort of goes the opposite way when we finally get to the end. When, if I'm remembering it correctly, they catch up with the witch and the kids and the monster as monsters. But at the same time, the witch gets her vibrator back, her glowing vibrator. And
now stained by that garbage sandwich called
Indeed. And
rotten.
shows them how it works and what she can do. She turns the kids back to kids. She turns the things back to normal that Malicious and Rotten had ruined. And then everybody, excuse me, everybody in the town is like,
turns Bob's voice back to some sort of a Toad character from Frog and Toad Are Friends.
It's because I was doing Rotten.
That's very good. I thought he was in the room.
So the townsfolk see that she is not too scary and she can grant these ghoulish wishes. And so everybody in the town starts wishing to be monsters.
They had to have a total pivot or change of heart.
Yeah.
Because this doesn't quite make sense. So yeah, she's showing, look, I can change everything back with my vibrator, magic in reverse, and fixes everything. And she looks very dejected. You may have just said this. She looks dejected when she's doing it. Somebody applauds. I think the lady who passed out nicely.
Yeah, it was nicely.
She applauds. And that applause somehow empowers the witch to be like, oh, I can do magic. And all of a sudden, the townspeople are saying, turn me into something, turn me into something. Like everybody suddenly wants this magical change. And I get the arc of the story. The witch gets to realize people do like what they're doing. People do realize Halloween is fun and everybody gets turned into something by the witch's magical vibrator. But I don't get that. I feel like
she even says
2 seconds of a scene gets pulled out.
She even says, let's get turned on.
Yeah, that's the last line of the special. She says, come to my humble mansion and I will turn you on. This is after changing her own appearance to be this sultry red Electra dress and her cat stroking her cat right there. Yeah, it's strange, right?
Yeah, but we're going to have to call it a pussy, though. I mean, that's really where this is all going, isn't it?
Oh, her cat?
Yeah.
I mean, I guess this is a sexed up fucking special. And but I guess before we jump to that, because yes, we can talk in detail about that. The change, the turn, the denouncement, what this special I guess is about is what? All of a sudden they're fine with everything that just happened, and I don't get that transition.
Yeah.
I don't see that in the story. But then she's like, turn me into what do people start turning into? Well, nicely.
Oh my God.
Asks to be turned into a vampire. What she turns into is a Todd McFarlane-esque Spawn era, big-breasted, thin-limbed, pinched waist, wet harpy of a bat. She's a vampire, but like a soldier. She suddenly gets like a bikini top.
Yeah, she's wearing a black bikini and these giant wings.
And this is the character that was just puffball.
And
she was made of like
she's like spread eagle too.
Yeah, that's a Ralph Bakshi little piece of animation if I ever saw one. I don't think he's Canadian, so I don't think he did it. But that's true. That is kind of what you think of with vampires. It's very sexual, very spread-legged, I guess. And then someone else wants to be Attila the Hun and whatever. But yeah, everyone gets turned into stuff. But that's weird, right? That's a weird
It's
image.
Not where I was expecting the show to go.
It's not where I expected an erection, but it's where I had one. But everyone gets turned into what they want, and Halloween is suddenly fun. And yeah, the witch invites everyone back to get turned on at her house. And that's, I get it. I get the wrap up. I think, well, what do you think the story is saying exactly? And if you already said this, I'm sorry to make you repeat it.
I honestly, I couldn't tell you. I really thought it was going to be about being careful what you wish for. But then it turned into maybe everybody has the same wish, and that's great. And once everybody realizes that, you can all get along. Maybe.
What?
I don't know.
That's 4 almost lessons. That's like an immorality play. I can't think of anything, but no, I don't know. Because they're. I think ultimately it's they want people to enjoy Halloween. It is like Halloween is fun.
Who's
There's
they?
even a little song.
The
makers
animators
of the special.
Yeah.
Whoever sold them the acid. I don't know, but it was odd because, and I think this happens a lot. I think. Like we went back last year and we watched the Great Pumpkin Charlie Brown special, and then with this special, and I'm sure there's other. Do you watch a lot of Halloween specials with your daughters? Do they have some favorites that you watch every year, or is this not a big season for them?
It's not really a big season for them. I think I've talked about how my girls can't handle stress or scares in any fashion. Honestly, me just talking about this special and they know that there's a witch in it starts to freak them out. So I have to calm them down and explain, oh no, it's just bright
why
colors.
Is that? Why is that for you? Because there must be nefarious deeds or antagonists in some of the things they watch.
And they freak out by it. I think I've used this example before. If Clifford, the big red dog, has broken something and lied about it, my oldest daughter, not so much now, but she used to.
Your 27-year-old daughter.
She used to freak out that he was going to get caught and felt so bad for him that he had to be put in that position. So you take that and put it to a kid might get killed or eaten or lost. It freaks her out. So they watch at Halloween.
Well, none of that happens in this special.
No.
No one's trying to eat anything
and
except maybe that one when he turns into a bat.
The bits that they've seen, I don't think it'll freak them out. But there aren't a lot of Halloween specials. They'll watch the Charlie Brown special. They like...
Does that freak them out, though?
It used to.
Yeah. That's a freaky special.
It used to, for sure. What didn't freak them out, although it did actually at times, was a Curious George Halloween special. There was like a 45-minute Curious George movie.
That's 38 minutes too much.
Where there's a legend of some mystery creature, and they keep thinking they're seeing it. And when they were just even a couple years ago, they're 10 and 8. So even when they were 6 and 8, they would get nervous.
One of them's just perpetually 8 years old.
Yeah. So they would just get nervous when that happened. And so as a joke tonight at dinner, because, we were in the Halloween mood, one of my daughters was talking about forming a book club, and she was trying to figure out what to read. So I just started naming Stephen King books. So my wife would be like, "Don't." The
Langoliers.
Yeah. Langoliers.
That might be a short story.
No, when I was naming stuff, and just the idea, just the names of the books, like when I said The Shining, my other daughter was like, "No, don't say it. I don't want to hear that word." Just because she knows it's a scary book, and now The Shining is going to always be scary to her, and to be honest, it should.
But they're not enjoying it? They don't enjoy...
No, they do not enjoy the scare. They get so mad. And
so what's Halloween to them?
Halloween to them is
holiday?
Dressing up. One of them is going to be a witch that has lights on her dress. The other,
she's okay with witches.
Yeah, the other was going to be Void from the Incredibles 2, which was like a superhero teenager. She's since switched that, and I can tell you about that offline.
Okay.
But yeah, they like...
For the Patreon subscribers, find out what Bob's daughter is dressing as for Halloween.
But no, they like to dress up. They like the candy. They like Charlie Brown having his head turned into a pumpkin.
That's hilarious.
Yeah, it's the best. So
but they don't like the horror aspect of Halloween.
They're not
so
there yet.
It's a dress-up holiday.
Yeah.
They don't even want to see, that was the thing. Halloween was a nice way to try to play with those feelings. I think that's how I got into some of the more horrific things. Because another thing that would happen during the Halloween season, at least when I was a kid, in addition to like your Halloween specials, there would just be more documentaries about ghosts, or demons. You would see more stuff about supposed haunted this, and the ghost who lived in my bed. I don't know what they were called, but you would just see these kind of specials. I mean, you'd see fucking specials. I remember this Halloween seance was done on Halloween night, hosted by William Shatner, where they were trying to contact Houdini's ghost live on TV.
I watched it.
Did you?
I did.
Do you know there's a story that when they broke for commercial because they were contacting something, they thought we can't show this on TV, and there's a whole bunch of stuff online about this footage that was seized and how it was cut, and that they actually something did happen on that set.
I had never heard that, And just hearing you say that, I have goosebumps. I know that's probably all bullshit, but just the fact that it could be real is what I love.
Yeah,
like,
that shit was
just
great.
exciting.
That was a great special. It's not necessarily about the seance about ghosts, but it was also about, there was magicians and there was Houdini's
you learned about
history,
Houdini
and
it was cool.
And you learned about Shatner as a comedian. But William Shatner, excuse me. But those kind of things, I loved all of that. And this special does it too. It's unnerving.
Yeah.
There's not much plot to these things, but I think the ones, like the specials that I think about and the ones that last, it's more about the atmosphere,
right.
Like the imagery, the colors. And I think that's great. It's so odd to me that your kids, whatever they're getting out of Halloween is not, because I did not care for going out and getting candy. I like candy, but I didn't like going door to door. I didn't like dressing up, really. I know you had to do it to get the candy, but I stopped trick-or-treating at a pretty young age. And just enjoyed all this buildup and all these feelings and just this overall sense of a playful way to enjoy unease. Do you worry about your kids not having that? Like, do you want them to have that angle?
I do. I definitely do. Only if I could enjoy it with them, Like, that's part of why I can't wait for them to get... I'm hoping as they get older, it comes around. But right now, it's just too much for them to handle.
But how do you introduce that? How do you... Because that is an amazing door to open up.
Yeah, well...
thrills and horror, being scared.
I'm trying with some lighthearted types of scares during the day. Like just having it on, not like sitting them down and saying, oh, you have to watch this. But just to have something on in the background that will catch their attention and they'll want to stop and watch it and see what happens.
Like what? Like
for
The
instance,
Shining? But the one with the guy from Wings?
Well, no. I know that we're going to talk about the Monster Squad coming up. And so my plan is actually to have the Monster Squad on some afternoon when they're home and just have them find it and not be forced to watch it. And I think if they just find it, that's going to help them. I
know we'll talk about another episode. That's a pretty sexed up movie as well.
Oh, is it? Then maybe I won't do
yeah.
that. I don't remember sex in that thing at all.
Oh, then maybe it will go right over their heads. But I mean, this was a sexed up special we just watched. I think that's part of the unease of Halloween and the sexiness of, I'm going to be a sexy Oscar the Grouch or whatever it is people dress up as. So you're trying to play it in the background to kind of sprinkle it or get it into their heads.
Yeah, because I think if I set them down and force them to it, like there's a house nearby that they build out their front yard a bit and turn it into a haunted house. We walk by it during the daytime, and I try and talk to them about it. And like, hey, maybe we could do it this year. And oh, your friend did it. Maybe we can do it. Or we'll with my other one. We walked to the park the other day. And we passed some decorated houses that had some pretty scary, cool stuff. Like skeletons sort of wrapped like a sarcophagus in a spiderweb netting hanging upside down from the tree. She was like, fuck that, cross the street, we're going some other way.
Okay.
And I
so
thought,
it's
no,
still scary imagery.
this is the time to do it. I was like, no, let's go see it right now at 1 p.m. in the afternoon with the sun shining bright. No noise, no smoke machines. But she just wasn't having it. So no, we're not there yet. If we'll ever get there, I don't know.
Was there stuff that was too scary for you as a kid that you can think of that you wouldn't edge into like around the Halloween season? Something like that or something similar to that?
No, not really. I think when I was younger, I didn't like the gross out stuff, the slasher stuff. But like, I remember when I was a young kid, I liked kind of old school stuff. I think we mentioned this last week, or maybe the week before. I liked the Universal monster movies. I would watch those when I was younger. And that's something.
Are you on another podcast? Because I don't remember that conversation.
Oh, really?
Do you have 20th Century Not? Is that what you're listening to?
No, we did. We talked about it at one point. Because we were talking about... there was a scene in Frankenstein that always stuck with me as scary and creepy. And I didn't tell you what it was because if you ever go and see it, I want it to be a fresh new surprise for you. But yeah, so I would watch those. I would watch Hitchcock. I watched The Birds, which I guess isn't really scary, but it did have like my first slasher type moment where she walks into a room at a farm, and the birds had been there, and she looked down, and there was the man she was going to see. He was dead, and it was a quick flash of his face with a bird poking his eye out, pecking his eye out. And it was disturbing me. It was creepy, crazy. And what was weird is that wasn't there the first time I saw the birds. Wherever I had seen it, it was on a channel that cut that part out. So when I saw that like the third or fourth time, I was like, holy shit, what's going on? What am I watching? This isn't the movie I remember. So that was my first taste of like gore.
Mm-hmm. And I think terror, I guess.
Yeah, and I think maybe that's the way to do it. Maybe that's what I'll try with my girls, is just to make them really afraid of birds.
Yeah, because you've got those on the West Coast.
Plenty of
We're
them.
a lot of birds here, but I'm sure you got them on the West Coast.
A couple.
But Halloween, maybe because it's everywhere, maybe because it's costume and it's a little goofy and there's candy, it was a nice sort of step into that portal, you know?
Yeah.
It was this fun sort of fear kind of thing. And it's odd hearing that seems to not be what your kids want at all. And then what is us here now wanting them to want that? What's like, some kids probably just don't fucking like Halloween. But we want them. I mean, they're not my kids, but I'm wondering, why aren't they? And it sounds like you want them to have that experience. Is it important to the bigger scheme of the world and existing in the world that they have this scared experience, this shared idea of fear and terror?
It probably is. I don't have the psychological background to tell you how.
But you're their parent. I mean, it sounds like it's important to you.
Yeah, well, it's important, I think, mostly selfishly, because I enjoy that. I enjoy a good ghost story. Yeah, so I want to be able to someday go through a haunted house with them, you know, and get freaked out and laugh about it as we exit. You know, it's like, that would be cool to share with them, because I can't share it with my wife, and maybe that's why my girls can't do it. My wife does not like any of that stuff at all.
It's interesting to me that they don't have that impulse, because I get not wanting to be scared, but I just feel like the month of October gives you that buffer, because they must see it in their schools, right? They must be celebrating Halloween in their schools with ghost stories and stuff. They're going to hear fucking Edgar Allan Poe. Everybody reads the goddamn Telltale Heart, which I do love, but everybody reads that by the time they hit 6th or 7th grade.
You know, they won't even watch Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Because those are scary, but I feel like that's a nice way into it, because they're comically scary.
I've actually not really like tricked them. It wasn't my intent, but we would watch a clip, and it turned out to be an episode, you know, a segment of a Treehouse of Horror. So if I don't call it a Treehouse of Horror, and they just start watching a Simpsons clip and they end up talking to Martians or, you know, chopping each other up, they're kind of okay with it. But to know that it's a Treehouse of Horror, to know that it's supposed to scare them, they will avoid it at all costs.
So what do they think of the title of this movie, Witches Night Out?
You know what? I don't think the title came up when I talked to him about it.
I think that'll turn them off, because the
No, it did,
special starts with a creepy
yes,
song.
It did come up because they knew it involved a witch, and so they didn't want to know anything about it. And I told them about the creepy song, and as soon as it started playing, she was like, no, turn it off. I don't want to hear it.
Man. Imagine if the only thing they ever make it through are all the Halloween movies with Michael Myers, because they love
Shatner.
the Love Guru. Or William Shatner, or a skinned William Shatner with no eyeballs. That's the show. That's the Halloween special, which is Night Out. Thank you for listening to us talk about it here on the show. If you like the show, if you want to hear more of the show, you can always find us at 20popcast.com. That's the main website for 20th Century Pop. Their most recent episode is always right there to listen to. You can also find links to all of our past episodes to listen to those as well. If you want to get another episode of the show every week, you can subscribe right there on the webpage. You can subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher, a bunch of different podcatchers that you can find us on. So please, if you do want to support the show, that's the best way you can support the show. Actually, the best way is if you want to leave a little review, leave a little comment, get the word out there, comment on some of the social media stuff we put up. Just basically, the more we can interact and kind of hear what people are thinking, gauge what people are thinking, the more we can figure out what to keep doing in the future. So yeah, check us out, 20popcast.com. You can also follow us on Twitter at 20popcast or on Instagram at 20popcast. I'd like to put a little prelude to a plug for you, Bob. You've been doing some amazing work recently on a little comic strip that you do, and I'm hoping that you mention it. I'm just saying that I really enjoyed it. I meant to say this off the mic, but now I feel like such a hero because I'm saying it with people listening. I've really been enjoying the angle your comic strip has taken. You do my Exaggerated Life, and I have to say you've got a sort of morose angle to it that I think is really working.
Oh, well, thanks. I don't know if it'll stay morose, but it's certainly the mood I've been in. It's sort of like a comic blog, taking moments and moods from my life and exaggerating them, as the title says, and turning them into a comical moment. So yeah, thanks. I'm glad you've been enjoying them. I've actually been really excited to put them together. It's been a long time since I've put some new ones out there. So thanks for checking that out, and I'm sure you'll put a link in the show notes. So thanks, man.
Yeah, what would that link be to?
Oh,
Where would that link
would
go?
Be to, well, here's the thing. I think I would prefer, I used to have a website, but I've transitioned it over to Twitter because it just kind of shows up better, and I think it flows better on Twitter. So check it out on Twitter at ExaggeratedMy, because that's what they assigned it when I tried to get my exaggerated. They gave me ExaggeratedMy, and I haven't changed it. So at ExaggeratedMy.
Yeah, so if you're home alone, the heat's cranked for some reason, if it's feeling really warm, and I'm trying to make a masturbation joke, but it's not. It is not working.
It's not.
It is not working.
Pull out your wand and enjoy the season.
Which season is that?
October.
Horse season.
October.
It's horse season.
It's horse season.
Like it's Mr. Ed's horse season. Actually, it sounds pretty hoarse with all that coughing.
Yeah, I don't know what that is. Stupid rotten.
Stupid rotten. Oh, the character.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the last word.
Since I did rotten, I've just not been able to get rid of that.
So, your impression from earlier in the show.
Yeah.
Your spot-on character work. Very good character work.
It's a bag of garbage.